New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good morning. Here it is, Saturday morning on the New Thought Media Network, and welcome to the Science of Mind and Spirit Conversation Series. I'm Reverend Barbara Jean Schreiner-Trudell. I'm the founder and spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake. That's in Toronto, Canada. And my pronouns are she, they. Well, as you can see from our graphics, there's a team of us, as you saw, and every Saturday morning we join you here on the New Thought Media Network to share the principles, the practice of Science of Mind, and more than anything else, how to apply those principles in your life today. So if you're watching live, be sure to put a little note in the chat so that we can see that you're here and include you in our conversation. Well, today, I want to just talk a little bit about what we do. We go through the Science of Mind textbook from January to July. And then we get into August and the rest of the year, and we go to the Science of Mind Library and Archives, and we pull articles from there to share this brilliant resource with you. So it is available 24/7. Be sure to check it out. So there are many, many things that you can get from that archive. Well, today we're using Science of Mind from September of 1950, pages 3 to 6. Enthusiasm, God's medicine. Who knew, right? Well, the article, which I found totally by accident, I think. I thought I'd just check out September and see what's there. Good morning, Linda. Glad you're here this morning. This journey that we are on, this idea of enthusiasm. You know, when I think of the world today and I look at what's going on since COVID, I think we could use a little bit of this. And seeing it as God's medicine, yeah, I think so. Ernest Holmes starts this article by saying every normal, and I'm going to use the word average, every average person wishes to be well, happy, and successful. I think we could all agree with that. So how do we get there? And most of the challenges that many of us face are the way that we perceive the world around us and what's going on. Ernest Holmes says sometimes we think that perhaps life withholds these good things from us as though it didn't wish for us to enter into the joy of living. Well, I don't think that's the case. If we go back to the teachings of Jesus, you know, I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. So that's the key. The universe wants us to live an abundant, joyous, fabulous life, not to go backwards, but to move into something new and wonderful. So there was one part of this that really stuck out for me. And I really believe that a lack of enthusiasm can really get us in trouble. But I want you to think back to when you're a little child. Yes, lots of enthusiasm as little children, right? We would run around, play, do things. We weren't really afraid of stuff that maybe we should have been. But we managed to get around and do all sorts of interesting things. And the enthusiasm level was very high. Even if we hurt ourselves, quickly we forgot about it, got up and went back to our play. So in the text, he says, Let's re-examine the child and see what he has that we've forgotten about. In the first place, a child has no fear. They're not morbid, unhappy. They have an enthusiastic zest for living. They expect to get a kick out of life. They expect their parents to provide for them. And they don't ever wonder whether or not the food is going to digest. They know it will. They aren't bothered with insomnia. They don't have stomach ulcers. And they live and sing and dance, and they're glad. I wonder what it would take for those of us who are outside of those earlier years to begin to live with that kind of child abandon, that enthusiasm for living, that we would take each day, each person as it comes, with a great level of joy and appreciation. Interesting. He goes on to write, now, if we were going to recapture this lost dream of youth, we shall have to return to the same place of confidence in life that we had when we were children. Children know they're cared for, and we've forgotten that. We teach that there's one power in the universe, infinite, creative, intelligent, everywhere present equally, which means it's right here where I am and right there where you are. And if that is the case, if that is the source and the substance of our very existence, then all we need to do is have absolute faith in that, and life works. Yeah, except we don't have absolute faith, do we? As we grow up, we become a bit maybe jaded. We start to think, oh, life's not fair. I heard a phrase a while ago that I really liked. Life is fair because it's unfair for everybody. I thought that was pretty good. So one of the greatest needs that we find, an emotional relationship to this thing called life or God, universe, first cause, love, whatever name you want to give it. We need to be in relationship with that. When we move into relationship with the divine, okay, he talks about religion here. I think of it more as spirituality. But when we move into that relationship with the divine, where we absolutely know our oneness with this divine presence, when we get there, everything shifts and changes. There is a thing that happens that allows us to live with a greater sense of freedom, peace, and joy. He says one of the greatest needs is to find that relationship with this thing called life, or to God, the living spirit, to that power greater than we are, that we find the same kind of relationship, but broadened and deepened, that we had for our human parents. See, when we were little, we didn't question. We knew mom, dad, all seeing, everywhere present, and all knowing. You ever try to fool them about something? Man, they knew before we did. So when we can begin to recognize that, the relationship we had with our parents may or may not be something that we could replicate in our relationship with the divine. And what we need to do is spend time in meditation, doing spiritual mind treatment, allowing ourselves to maybe journal when pain arises or fear arises, so that we can clear it out and begin to move from a place of possibility. Good morning, Peter. It would be really, really wonderful for us to reframe how we live and begin to look more at that childlike excitement, that childlike enthusiasm, that childlike verve for living. In this joy of living that we wish to recapture, only those who possess this priceless gift when they became adult can stay young. So, we all know somebody who's got this real youthful zest for life, and we might even be critical of them. But let's take a look at that. If we were to begin to live from that excitement, from that joy, with that feeling of, yes, life is for me, wouldn't we be in a much better place? We have this vision of creating a world that works for all. And, interesting vision. I like to call it, a world that works for the highest and best good of all, adding that little bit to it. Because I think when we learn how to live from our divine truth, from our God essence, from that infinite creator, then what happens is we begin to experience a deep sense of freedom, some comfort, peace, and joy. There's a sense of abandon that comes when we look at the world around us and the problems that we might see. We can let some of that go, knowing this too is taking us somewhere. We tend to look at life and call it bad or wrong, but what if what's going on is actually moving us in the direction of our highest and greatest potential? So sometimes something happens that interrupts our forward motion. Now we call it bad and we might get stuck there. But what if instead, like a child, we looked at it and went, oh, okay, now what? Because kids move on, right? My great-grandson broke his wrist a couple weeks ago. And, 2 days later, he was out dirt biking. I wouldn't do that. I broke my shoulder 4 weeks ago, and I'm still sitting here unable to move it. So the journey that we're on as adults and children, we're in different places. Now, as adults, of course, we have more information. We've learned a lot of things. We've discovered, maybe we failed a little and grown a little, whatever's happened. If we take that enthusiasm and mix it with our wisdom, we now have a wonderful cocktail for a glorious life that experiences freedom and peace and love and joy wherever we go. So very important that we take time for our practice. It's essential, actually. You didn't have one meal and say you were done. No, we have 3 a day generally. So when we're looking at our spiritual practice, if we want to live from that place of freedom, if we want to live with that enthusiasm, if we want to be excited for life moment by moment, then we need to do a little something to interrupt the negativity. So for me, I shut off the news. I don't watch it. I get the information. There's always somebody who's going to tell me what's going on. But I shut off the news because I found that it was quite distressing. However, when I do hear a news story, that to me is a prayer request. So that's when I do spiritual mind treatment for the highest and best good of whatever it is I'm witnessing. So the journey that we're on is about finding our true self, remembering who we really are, and then living from that more enlightened, expansive awareness rather than believing in this finite existence that we have called real. Yes, we are having the human experience, and we are divine beings. So if we can marry the two, what we can do is experience a greater level of freedom when we start to listen as that God voice within us is speaking to us. When we listen to that, we start to see what's possible for us. And we can move forward with a sense of grace and gratitude and possibility. Further along in the article, he takes a quote of the Bible. This is why he said that the kingdom of heaven is like a child. Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. Jesus knew that you are some part of the whole scheme of things. And he never lost that childlike, enthusiastic, excited approach to living. This individual that we may learn from, some of us or not, actually is a model for what we are. Jesus wasn't the exception, but rather the example of how to live a life that is fulfilling and joyful, beautiful and remarkable. How do we go to that place? Now, that doesn't mean as a human, I'm not going to have a bad day. Of course I'm going to, right? Like the Buddhists say, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And the suffering comes from the way we think. So we shift our thinking, we shift our way of being in the world, we shift how we're showing up, and we allow ourselves to become more like the child with a sense of acceptance that the power and presence of the universe is here, not once in a while, not on occasion, not if I behave properly, but 24/7, always. And the answer always given is the yes. It's always a yes. whatever's going on in the world around us, whatever we have in our heart that we truly believe for us, the universe says yes to. And the challenge for most of us is we're living with limitations. We're living with fear and worry and doubt, and those things become manifest. So we want to shift that and move into that place of enthusiasm, where we wake up in the morning and put our feet on the ground and go, yeah, I'm still here. So now what? What will I do today? It is known that a lack of enthusiasm causes most of our physical weariness, that the sense of insecurity, worry, and anxiety that attends this produces many of our physical troubles. Well, we know anger, rage, all of that can lead to heart disease, can lead to cancer. So we want to take a look at the way we're thinking about life and the way we're moving forward. And is there something we should be doing different? He goes on to say, we wish to remain children in the larger family, sons and daughters, children of a universal parentage. We want to have the same feeling that we had when we were children and still be responsible adults. We have to balance the two, a little bit like the yin-yang symbol, where the black and the white are both embedded in each other. There's a part of us that we might call wrong and bad, but I would ask why. Why we think a certain part of our being is bad. And probably we would discover that somebody told us that. So it's time to reflect and maybe come up with a new definition of who I am. By looking deep within and asking the questions, what do I want? What do I need? What excites and delights me? What is my passion? And one of the things that I often suggest to people who are unsure, who can't remember, is to think back to when you were a child. Think back to the games you played. Think back to the stories you told. Think back to that time when you were free. And truthfully, you still are. It's only this that locks us up. So he goes on to say that in order to do this, to live this way, it cannot be done without confidence in life, and life with a capital L. So confidence in God. It's like we have to have this spiritual connection to truly experience the freedom that has been given us, the freedom that has always been there for us. It is absolutely essential that we have a confidence in that, a belief in that, that we might use it, lean on it, believe in it enough to actually go there before we go into the worry and fear. Fear, I know Course in Miracles calls fear false evidence appearing real. I like the acronym feeling excited and ready. Feeling excited and ready. And the reason I say that is when we're in fear, the feeling we get in the pit of our stomach is very similar to the feeling we get when we're super excited and when we're anxious. The feeling is very similar. So what if we call it excitement, enthusiasm, passion, rather than calling it something bad? So common sense will tell you that just as the tree must be rooted in the soil from which it draws its sustenance while lifting up its branches to the sun and the light and the air into heaven, so you and I will have to feel ourselves rooted in something which we draw our life from. So we've all come, we're all born in the image and of the likeness of the Creator, God, Spirit, Universe, whatever name you want to use. And because we are from that one source, when we connect with that, when we come to terms with that, when we accept that that is the truth for us, we free ourselves from the limitations and the fear, doubt, and worry that maybe we were living from before. Now, that's not to say they won't reappear, because they probably will. However, even scientists are saying it's time for us to consider what spirituality has to offer. There was an article years ago in Newsweek called Science Finds God. And it was a really remarkable article to see all these scientists talk about why they believe there must be a God. And they believe that because in everything they've done, there is nothing that explains why things are the way they are, like the idea of the power and presence of God. So this energy that we're living with, this journey that we're walking, we're never walking alone. We are always part of this whole. And if we can come to terms with that and begin to live from there, if we would spend more time in here rather than worrying about what's out here, again, there's a sense of freedom, but also empowerment that comes from that, where all of a sudden we realize we get to create something in our lives that's really remarkable if we so choose. And it does come back to choice. He goes on to say in the article, science has unlocked many a secret of nature and even exposed the energy hidden at the center of the atom. But why is it that today so many of our leading scientists are counseling that we get back to God? It's that intelligence back of the universe, that empowering force that will take us into a new way of being that's absolutely powerful and positive and productive. And I think we get there by looking at how we live moment by moment. And I think we're being called to be more inclusive, to be more accepting, to look at ourselves in the mirror with a sense of love and appreciation, to share with each other from a place of honor and respect. So when we see another person, to realize, because I am one with this divine presence, the person in front of me must be also. They have to be. And if we all live, move, and have our being within this one thing, then everything I think, say, and do happens in it. And the same is true for you. And what I'm thinking about and what I'm doing and how I'm showing up impacts the entirety of it. It must. So for every one of us that is feeling connected and living in this place of love and possibility, of acceptance of the divine, in this sense of just grace, for every one of us that does that, we are lifting consciousness for all life. And if we fall into the pit and we start playing the victim, or we start looking at the world as bad and wrong and terrible, or we even look at our own lives and go, I need to be fixed, I'm broken and flawed, we are in fact dragging the universal energy down. Hey, Laura, thank you. So that journey that we're on is really about remembering whose we are. And when we look at this universal oneness and we jump into that, we can allow ourselves to really be fulfilled in everything that we do. We can begin to live with a greater freedom. But it does require that we make a choice. And that choice has to be one that allows for the presence of the divine. As long as we're living from this finite awareness only, and believe me, it calls our attention. When I broke my shoulder, oh man, I was crying in pain. Yeah, I was, because it hurt. But you don't live there. It's like you have this moment and then you stop and remember, well, now what? What is it about this that is allowing me to return to the source? And what I realized is I'm not particularly good at asking for help and receiving help. But when you're down to one arm for 6 weeks, it's inevitable you have to ask for help. I think the universe gives us messages. And if we would speak to our body, if we would know that our body is part of God too, and begin to listen to what it's telling us, we would start to see that every ache and pain is actually a call for our attention. And so the universe is asking us, so for me, it's like, I just go into my shoulder space going, so what do you need? Well, don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders for maybe it would be a good start. So again, we're looking at how we interact with the world and whether or not we rely on this power and presence, or if we rely on facts and what we term reality. I'm not so sure it's a reality. So he goes on in here to say that psychology has uncovered many secrets of the human mind, those hidden and almost unknown causes of so much of our distress. But why is it that today so many of our leading psychologists are counseling a return to a life of faith? Again, I don't know if that's still the case today, but I look at the loneliness that has come since COVID. I look at the level of depression in some people, and maybe a return to faith is exactly what we're needing. If we could come to terms with this idea that I'm not alone in this universe, that I'm part of something bigger, something remarkable, what might my life look like then? What changes would happen that would allow me to show up as the greatest possible version of myself? And it does require that we're looking inward rather than out, which is a challenge for some of us for sure. He goes on to say, we may study all the philosophies of the human race since time began, and such comfort as we glean from them will not be the comfort of intellectual gymnastics, but comes only from those passages from Socrates, Plato, Emerson, which tell us that the finite alone has wrought and suffered. The infinite lies stretched in smiling repose. And what does that mean? It means that the part of me, the eternal part of me, has never been touched by anything. No matter what has happened in my physical world, the essence of me has not been harmed at all, has not been touched in any way by that. It continues. The finite of me, the part of me that believes this is who I am and everybody ought to be nice to me. That's the part of me that is sort of suffering and struggling. But the minute that I leave that behind and drop into that heart space, I find something new. He goes on to say, it's one of the most helpful signs of our times that in the midst of all this confusion, doubt, and fear, there is reaching out or in or back to this thing called life. I am content to call it, he calls it religion, I would call it spirituality, because I know that the world can no more exist without spirituality and remain happy than the physical body can exist without food, pardon me, to remain happy and healthy. This is the way we are made. This is the way we're made. We require food, we require water, we require connection. And I've noticed lately that the connection part is a little bit missing, that there's so many people, maybe because of the lockdown, who started, staying in their homes. And then now that the world is back open again, maybe a little fearful to get back out there. Or maybe because of being locked in and staying in their homes for so long, there has been a sense of loneliness and despair that has settled in, leading to depression, which has then caused some of us to just curl up and stay home. But what do we really need? What do we really need? We need to connect with one another. We need to spend time with one another. We need to get excited about the new day. Wake up and, it's just like Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, where we go, this now moment is the one that matters. This now moment is my moment to connect with the world. This now moment is my place of possibility, of freedom, of joy. This is where I can create The now moment is the only point of power. And when I can let go of the past, when I stop worrying about the future and I allow myself to just be present, what happens is that life begins to move with a sense of freedom, but also a joyfulness. There's an excitement that comes out of that. And Ernest Holmes says, I'm not trying to get you to believe in any particular religion. I'm talking about the essence of spirituality, because the essence of all these various religions is identical. It is a belief in God, and an enthusiastic belief, not just an intellectual one. It's easy to go to church on Sunday because that's what you're supposed to do. It's a whole different thing to have a fulfilling, satisfying relationship with this divine presence we call God or spirit, universe, first cause. That's the relationship we're looking for. We're looking to dig deep into our humanity so that we can find our divinity. And it is in finding it. It's never been withheld. It's not someplace other than us. It's right here. But of course, we're so busy looking out here, we've missed it. And we need to come back to center. He writes in the article, enthusiasm reaches out with joy. There is nothing depressing about it. It reaches out in faith. There is no fear in it. It reaches out with acceptance. There is no doubt in it. And it reaches out as a child that there is no uncertainty about it. Just a joyful trust in life, just a happy outlook on living, just a complete assurance that we can have confidence in God. When we awaken to that idea, when we awaken to the possibility that God is present everywhere at all times equally, that God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and we switch out the word God because that sometimes has, people going, I don't believe in God. Well, we're talking about energy. We're talking about the universe. We're talking about first cause of all things. We're not talking about a guy in the sky. In New Thought, we're talking about the power and presence of life. This one thing. It fascinates me in every religion. They talk about God is the one, the only. There is only one. There is only one. And because there's only one, what that means is each one of us is in it. And what that would suggest is we're not separate. We're connected. We're connected fully and completely. And if we take that in mind, we take that idea that I am part of this entire thing. If we can begin to live from that perspective, rather than from this place of fear or doubt or worry or whatever else might be going on for us, if we can just revert back a little bit and decide that we are going to live in absolute faith, that we are going to enjoy the grace of this divine presence. From there on, life flows in a much different way. It's powerful, it's productive. We learn to work together because there's only one of us here. We learn to accept one another rather than judge one another. And when we feel judgment, we go within our own self to find out what part of us we have denied or what aspect of our being we have judged. So the idea of enthusiasm requires participating in life in a really bold and big way. It means being like the child and standing up for what we believe is right and standing up for ourselves. Standing in our power and saying, now what? With a great sense of joy, now what? What's coming? What can I do? What's possible? You see, we are moving along, whether we like it or not. And change is the constant. Because it must be. There's always newness. There's always newness. Always newness, which means there's always change. Our resistance to change is our resistance to the divine. Our resistance to joy is our resistance to the divine. Our insistence on things being my way instead of somebody else's. Again, we're holding back and we're in resistance to this divine presence. There is only one thing going on, and it is an energy system that is intelligent, that permeates everything. Everything came from it. And the thing that came from it didn't diminish it. So here we are, living life, either in a place of pain and suffering or in a place of joy and celebration. I broke my shoulder, and yes, it was painful, and I'm not suffering. Why? Because I'm not focused on this. I'm focused on this. I want to invite you to really explore your relationship with God, to explore your relationship with the divine and what it means for you, and to really explore the idea of deepening your practice so that you can find a more fulfilling experience of God. And so I would suggest maybe morning meditation, half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, 10 minutes, if that's all you can do. But taking the time in the silence, not to try to do something or to quiet your mind, but rather to just sit and be and become aware of where your thinking goes. Just notice it lovingly with compassion. Oh, I was just thinking about, oh no, darn, did I shut the iron off? I don't know. Did I lock the front door? I don't know. Surrendering instead into this place of all is well, right here, right now. So I'm not going to worry about what was. I'm just going to quiet my mind. I'm going to gently bring myself back to my meditation, and I'm going to sit in the silence. And it is in sitting in the silence that I may discover what the universe is trying to tell me, the messages that are coming forth. And when that message comes forth, I go into spiritual mind treatment, and I allow myself to be willing to receive it, to know that it's a here and now reality, to accept that I can be that I can do whatever it is being suggested. We take the time at the end of every day to be grateful. Everything we focus on grows and expands. Everything we focus on grows and expands. If we're focused on fear and worry, it does what? It grows and expands. If we focus on joy and well-being, it grows and expands. So we're changing the narrative, and we're becoming very enthusiastic about life because we know that we are here for a moment. Just a blip on the screen of the universe. But during that blip, you are essential, as am I. Essential to the unfolding of the universe today. Essential. And what that means is that who you are, what it is you're here to do, not only has value, but is required for the fulfillment of this universal experience at this time. So you have been created unique and special, just like everybody else. And when we come to understand that we're all created that way, that we're all a child of God, that we really get what it was that Jesus showed us, the Father and I are one. All that I will do, you will do, and greater things. He was showing us the way. He was laying out the template. All that is required of us is to love God, to love the universe, to love life, life with a capital L. And as we come to that place of love, everything else unfolds beautifully, easily. Enthusiasm becomes just an everyday thing. We wake up and go, yay, life. We look in the mirror and go, wow, look what God created. And we journey around with our family and friends and those that we have not yet gotten to know. The loving heart with a respectful nature. We acknowledge our oneness. And we accept that we are here by divine appointment, and that why we're here matters. Ernest Holmes finishes off this article by saying, let us awaken the joy in us again and enter into the game of living, not sitting on the sidelines, but out there on the field pitching. Let's join life. Let's find a way to play, to laugh, to sing, to dance, to love one another, to be accepting. Let's find a way to truly share our light in the world. Well, I want to thank you for being here this morning. This is the end of today's lesson. And I just want to invite you to please join us. Join us again next week. Every week we're doing this, half hour, 45 minutes. And join next Saturday and see what's going on and go through the programming. There is a lot of stuff going on here at the New Thought Media Network, and it will all serve your well-being. The prayers, the various talk shows, the information shared, it's really, really remarkable. And consider a recurring donation. Our programming relies on your generosity. So we're really grateful for your attendance, and we're really grateful for your generosity. So I invite you to stay in tune with us, watch what we're doing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, just know life loves you, God loves you, and I do too. Bye for now.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings. On behalf of the New Thought Media Network,